Chapter 6. A Deserter in Time of War. I am at a loss to understand why a German bat-ball is not an event, possibly a key event, in the Olympic Games. Winston Niles Rumford. It was a 6-mile march from the army camp to the plain where the invasion fleet lay, and the route of the march cut across the northwest corner of Phoebe, the only city on Mars. The population of Phoebe at its height, according to Winston Niles Rumford's Pocket History of Mars, was 87,000. Every soul and every structure in Phoebe was directly related to the war effort. The mass of Phoebe's workers were controlled just as the soldiers were controlled, by antennas under their skulls. Unk's company was now marching through the northwest corner of Phoebe, on its way in the midst of its regiment to the fleet. It was thought unnecessary now to keep the soldiers moving and in ranks by means of twinges from their antennas, because war fever had them now. They chanted as they marched, and set their iron-heeled boots down hard on the iron street. Their chant was bloody. Terror, grief, and desolation, hut, to, thrup, foe, come to every earthling nation, hup, to, thrup, flow, earth eat fire, earth wear chains, hup, tro, thrup, fro, break earth's spirit and spill earth's brains, hup, tro, thrup, fro, scream, trup, thrup, fro, bleed, trup, thrup, fro, die, trup, thrup, fro, doom. The factories of Phoebe were still going full blast. No one was idling in the streets to watch the chanting heroes pass. Windows winked as dazzling torches inside went off and on. A doorway vomited, spattering, smoking, yellow light as metal was poured. The screams of grinding wheels cut through the soldiers' chant. 3 flying saucers, blue scout ships, skimmed low over the city, making sweet cooing sounds like singing tops. Tulu. They seemed to sing, and they skimmed away in a flat course while the surface of Mars curved away beneath them. In 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, they were twinkling in space eternal. Terror, grief, and desolation, chanted the troops. But one soldier was moving his lips without making a sound. That soldier was Unk. Unk was the first file. Unk was, sorry, let me just... I have a little bit of a cold, apologies. Unk was first in the first line of the next to the last rank of his company. Boaz was right behind him, his eyes making the back of Unk's neck itch. Boaz and Unk, moreover, were made Siamese twins by the long tube of a 6-inch siege mortar, which they were carrying between them. Bleed, tup, thrup, fro, chanted the troops. Die, tup, thrup, fro, doom. Unk, old buddy, said Boaz. Yes, old buddy, said Unk absently. He was holding, amid the confusion of his soldier's harness, a live hand grenade. The pin had been pulled. It would go off in 3 seconds. Unk had only to let go of it. I done fixed us up with a good assignment, old buddy, said Boaz. Oh, Boaz, he takes care of his buddy, don't he, buddy? That's right, buddy, said Unk. Boaz had arranged things so that he and Unk would be on board the company mothership for the invasion. The company mothership, though it would, through a logistical fluke, be carrying the tube of the siege mortar, which is essentially a non-combat ship. It was meant to carry only 2 men, the rest of the space being taken up by candy, sporting goods, recorded music, canned hamburgers, board games, goofballs, soft drinks, Bibles, notepaper, barbecue kits, ironing boards, and other morale builders. That's a lucky start, ain't it, old buddy? Getting on the mothership? Lucky us, old buddy, said Unc. He had just chucked the grenade into a sewer as he passed. There was a spout and roar from the throat of the sewer. The soldiers hurled themselves into the street. Boaz, as the real commander of the company, was the first to raise his head. He saw the smoke coming from the sewer. Supposed that it was sewer gas, and that was what had exploded. Boaz slipped his hand into his pocket, pressed a button, fed to his company the signal that would make them stand up again. As they stood, Boaz stood too. "God damn, buddy," he said. "I guess we done had a baptism of fire." He picked up his end of the siege mortar's tube. There was nobody to pick up the other end. Unc had gone in search of his wife and son and his best friend. Unc had gone over the hill on the flat Mars. The son that Unc was looking for was named Chrono. Chrono was, by Earthling reckoning, 8 years old. He was named after the month in which he had been born. The Martian year was divided into 21 months, 12 with 30 days, 9 with 31. These months were named January all the way to December, of course, but after that you'd get Winston, then Niles, Rumford, Kazakh, Newport, Chrono, St. Classic, Infundibulum, and Salo. Pneumatically, 30 days have Salo, Niles, June, and September. Winston, Chrono, Kazakh, and November. April, Rumford, Newport, and Infundibulum. All the rest, baby mine, have 31. The month of Salo was named after a creature Winston, Niles, Rumford knew on Titan. Titan, of course, is an extremely pleasant moon of Saturn. Salo, Rumford's crony on Titan, was a messenger from another galaxy who was forced down on Titan by a failure of a part of his spaceship's power plant, and he was waiting for a replacement part. He'd been waiting very patiently for about 200,000 years. His ship was powered, and the Martian war effort was powered, by a phenomenon known as UWTB, or the Universal Will to Become. UWTB is what makes universes out of nothingness, and what makes nothingness insist on becoming somethingness. Many Earthlings are glad that Earth does not have UWTB. As the popular doggerel has it, Willie found some universal will to become, mixed it with his bubblegum. Cosmic piddlin' seldom pays for poor Willie's six new Milky Ways. Unc's son Chrono was 8 years old, a wonderful player of the game called German Batball. German Batball was all that he cared about. German Batball was the major sport on Mars, in the grammar school, in the army, and in the factories workers' recreation areas. So, since there were only 52 children on Mars, Mars got along with just one grammar school, and right in the middle of Phoebe as well. None of the 52 children there had been conceived on Mars. All of them had been conceived either on Earth or, as in Chrono's case, on a spaceship bringing in new recruits from Mars. The children in the school studied very little, since the society on Mars had no particular use for them. They spent most of their time playing German Batball, and the game of German Batball is played with a flabby ball the size of a honeydew melon, and the ball is no more lively than a 10-gallon hat filled with rainwater. The game is something a little like baseball, with a batter striking the ball into a field of opposing players and then running around bases with the fielders attempting to catch the ball and frustrate the runner. There are, however, only 3 bases in German Batball: first, second, and home. And the batter is not pitched to. He has places he places the ball on one first and then strikes the ball with his fist. He places the ball on one fist and strikes it with his other fist. Okay, that makes more sense. I really am dying here, by the way. I need to get some tissue. Oh, God. Yeah, wintertime. You get sick in winter, don't you? Oh, okay. So, back to the book. And if a fielder succeeds in striking the runner with the ball, then the runner is between bases, then the runner is deemed out and must leave the playing field at once. So it's similar to rounders, I guess, or baseball. So the person responsible for the heavy emphasis on German bat ball on Mars was, of course, Winston Niles Rumford, who was responsible for everything on Mars. However, Howard W. Sams proves in his Winston Niles Rumford, Benjamin Franklin and Leonardo da Vinci that German bat ball was the only team sport with which Rumford was at all familiar with as a child. Sams shows that Rumford was taught the game when, as a child, by his governess and Miss Joyce Mackenzie. So back in Rumford's childhood in Newport, a team composed of Rumford, Miss Mackenzie, Earl Moncrief, the butler, they used to play German bat ball regularly as a team composed of Watanabe Wataru, the Japanese gardener, Beverly June Wataru, the gardener's daughter, Edward Seward Darlington, the half-wit stable boy. And so playing against that team, Rumford's team, would invariably win. So Unk the deserter, in fact the only deserter in the history of the Army of Mars, is now crouching behind a turquoise boulder and watching the school children as they play German bat ball in the iron playground. Behind the boulder with Unk was a bicycle that he'd stolen from a gas mask factory's bicycle rack, and Unk didn't know which child was his son. He didn't know which child was Chrono. So his plans were quite nebulous. His dream was to gather together his wife, his son, and his best friend, and to steal a spaceship and fly away to some place where they could all live happily ever after. Then someone shouts, "Hey, Chrono! You're up to bat." Unk peered around the boulder at the home plate. The child who came up to bat there was Chrono. That would be his son. Chrono came up to bat. He was quite small for his age, but surprisingly manly through the shoulders. The child's hair was jet black, bristly, and the black bristles grew in a violently counterclockwise swirl. The child was left-handed. The ball rested on his right fist, and he prepared to hit it with his left. His eyes were deep-set like his father's, and his eyes were also luminous. Their black-thatched eaves, they glowed with an unshared rage. Those rage-filled eyes flickered this way then that. Their movements rattled the fielders, drawing them away from their positions, convincing them that the slow, stupid ball was going to come at them with a terrifying speed. It was going to tear them to pieces if they dared get in the way. The alarm inspired by the boy at the bat was felt by the teacher too. She was in the traditional position for an umpire in German bat ball between the first and second base, and she was terrified. She was a frail old lady. Her name was Isabel Fernstemaker. Or Fernstemaker, not sure really, but we'll say Maker. So, I think it might be Maker, but I don't know. Anyway, she was 73 years old, and she'd been a Jehovah's Witness before having her memory cleared out. She had been shanghaied while trying to sell a copy of The Watchtower to a Martian agent in Duluth. "Now, Chrono," she said simperingly, "it's only a game, you know." The sky was suddenly blackened by a formation of 100 flying saucers, the blood-red ships of the Martian parachute ski marines. The combined cooing of the ships was a melodious thunder that rattled the schoolhouse and window panes. But, as a measure of the importance young Chrono gave to German bat ball when he came out to bat, not a single child looked up at the sky. Young Chrono, having brought the fielders and Miss Fernstemaker to the brink of nervous collapse, now put the ball down by his feet, took from his pocket a short strip of metal that would be his good luck piece. He kissed the strip for good luck, returned the strip to his pocket. Then suddenly he picked up the ball again and hit it with a mighty bloop, and it went scrambling around the bases. Oh, sorry, he went scrambling around the bases. The fielders and Miss Fernstermaker dodged the ball as though it were a red-hot cannonball. When the ball came to a stop of its own accord, the fielders went after it with a sort of ritual clumsiness. Clearly, the point of their efforts was not to hit Chrono with the ball. It was not to put him out. No, the fielders were all conspiring to increase the glory of Chrono by making a show of helpless opposition. Clearly, Chrono was the most glorious thing that the children had ever seen on Mars, and any glory they themselves had came from their association with him. They would do anything to make his glory grow. Young Chrono slid into home and then into a cloud of rust. A fielder hurled the bat ball at him. Too late, much too late. The fielder ritually cursed his luck. Young Chrono stood, dusted himself off, and again kissed his good luck piece, thanked it for another home run. He believed firmly that all his powers came from the good luck piece, and so did his schoolmates, and so secretly did Miss Fernstermaker. The history of the good luck piece was this. One day, the school children were taken by Miss Fernstermaker on an educational tour of the flamethrower factory. The factory manager explained to the children all the steps in the manufacture of flamethrowers, and hoped that some of the children, when they grew up, would want to come and work for him. At the end of the tour, in the packaging department, the manager's ankle became snarled in a spiral of steel strapping, and it was a type of strapping that was used for binding shut the packaging for the flamethrowers. So the spiral was a piece of jagged-ended scrap that had been cast into the factory aisle by a careless working man. The manager scratched his ankle and tore his pants before he got free of the spiral. He thereupon put on the first really comprehensible demonstration that the children had seen that day. Comprehensively, he blew up the spiral. He stamped on it. Then, when it nipped at him again, he snatched it up and chopped it into 4-inch lengths with great shears. The children were edified, thrilled, and satisfied. And, as they were leaving the packaging department, young Chrono picked up one of the 4-inch pieces and slipped it into his pocket. The piece he picked up differed from all the rest in having 2 holes drilled in it. This was Chrono's good luck piece. It became as much a part of him as his own right hand, or his nervous system, so to speak. The metal scrap extended. Chrono. So to touch the metal scrap, you touched Chrono. Unk, the deserter, stood up behind his turquoise boulder, walked vigorously and officiously into the schoolyard. He dropped his uniform of all insignia, and this gave him a rather official, warlike look, without binding him to any particular enterprise. Of all the equipment he had been carrying before he deserted, he retained only a jungle knife, his single-shot Mauser, and 1 grenade. These 3 weapons he left cached behind the boulder, along with the stolen bicycle. And I'm going to leave that here, because I think this is where I begin in the next video. This video was short because I think I had to catch a flight. So what we have is a little bit of confusion, with the video being me in an airport, then having done the next chapter previous to this recording, in which now I am currently sick. So yeah, bit of a fuck up, but it's been fun, and it will continue. I'm determined to get through this book and complete it, and then start another one after that, and another side quest during this project. I am going to make sure I don't do, or at least do as little damage to this fucking book as possible. And I'm terrified because I'm kind of sick, and I don't want to get any snot on this book. So there we go. All right, thank you, goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.